Hello and welcome. I am Scarperlock, and this is City of Heroes. We are with Liberty Lass, who's level 38. We still have about a half a million XP to go to get to level 39, and we are on the Envoy of Shadow story arc. And I don't know if we're going to face the Envoy again. I feel like, if I remember this right, there are several other missions besides the one we just did where you can fight him, but you don't have to. And even in the mission we just did, I'm not sure you have to fight him. I don't think that was a condition of victory. I think victory condition. I think that the problem was we just got an unlucky spawn point for him right in the middle of the hallway. Other times I remember finding him in like the prison area, and you don't even have to go in there, and that sort of thing. So, if we find the envoy, we were able to beat a level 38 envoy without much of a problem with the right inspirations. We might be able to do 39. We saw that a 40 we cannot beat. It just hits too hard, and we just don't have enough inspirations in here to carry us through. And the real problem is that even with this running strength of will, we only have about 15, 18% fire resistance, and it's just not enough because we don't have things enhanced and that sort of thing. So, in future levels, when we do have more slots in and more enhancements and some enhancement sets, we'd probably be able to take a +2 Envoy, but right now it's just a little bit rough. But we are going to do a +2, excuse me, a +2 mission, and if we don't have to fight the Envoy, we should be okay. Let's see what do we got here. Oh, and they're slowing me down, so let's hit hasten. These guys, of course, are +3, so we really would have trouble against a +3 Envoy. As we go, I do want to talk a little bit more about my recent rant where we were talking about this idea of whether it's a good idea to have the whether it helps to not have the mechanics specify out parts of the game, and whether it's like it gives you more freedom if there aren't any mechanics, so you could just sort of make up whatever you want. And I think that there are people who are strongly concerned with roleplay who are talking about this as a potential aspect of game design, right? The guy who developed Motherboard saying that, well, they wanted stealth to be a really descriptive and interactive thing, and they felt like if they just gave you a stealth skill and you could make a stealth roll, you wouldn't describe and interact. You would just say, I'm going to roll stealth. Now, again, that's really not how most people play role-playing games. It's not really how most of them were designed or expected you to. Certainly not champions, right? In champions, you have presence. It can be used to intimidate others, but you're not allowed to just say, I roll presence. You're supposed to say what your character's doing in order to be impressive or intimidating. And there's a boss, so let's go ahead and buff up. And so at least ordinarily in champions, you're supposed to describe what you're doing. You're supposed to have your character give a speech. They call it soliloquy, right? You're supposed to state what superpowers you're using and that kind of thing. And that ends up being the roleplay part, right? You do that even though you have a presence stat, a presence mechanic. And yes, my phone is ringing, so let me pause it here. I'll be right back. It was, of course, spam. So anyway, we have this issue. Does putting a mechanic for something into the game cause people to give short shrift to the actual like storytelling, the fiction, the role playing? And maybe it does. But here's an issue that I wanted to address because I think it's relevant. And that is that we have to ask, why is it that some players really, really want to do mechanical things that it doesn't say on their character sheet, right? You might have a player who says, I know it doesn't say on my character sheet that my character would know anything about this, but because my background says X, can I make a roll for it anyway, or can I know this anyway? Right? And you have to ask yourself, why are they making the request? What's the reason behind this request? After all, if we're talking about, let's say, can I make a common knowledge roll or an occult roll about weird evil creatures in the Weird West, even though my character doesn't have the occult skill? Right? Can I maybe not make it at the D4 -2? Can I maybe get like a free D6 roll on it because it says in my background that my character read occult stories when they were a kid? What's this an attempt to do? Or if we think about champions, and we had a guy, the Bad Rob, used to do this, right? He would make these just ridiculous monologues. They were horrible because he wasn't a great role player. And his monologues always began with, "As you can see." And he would try to intimidate these villains by saying, "As you can see, I'm more powerful than you." And I don't know what he was trying to get them to do, right? I mean, ostensibly, he was trying to get them to surrender. But we're playing champions, and everybody came over today so that the Crusaders could fight the Overlords. And once the battle is about to start, or has already joined and it's phase 2 and he's going on the segment 2 phase, if he actually succeeded at convincing these very powerful villains that he's so impressive they should just surrender and go to jail, the entire group, besides him, and possibly even him, would be ticked off. Because we came here to have a superhero fight. And we want to have one. And now you've circumvented it. And you've made it so we can't have one. Like, you really intend, do you expect to succeed at stopping the fight from happening that everybody came over here to have? It's unlikely that he even knew what he was doing, in a sense. He was trying to just be impressive with his character, right? He just wanted all the other characters to be impressed with his character. That's what he was trying to do. But the question you have to ask yourself with this guy who had a 10 presence, right? If he wants to do this presence attack type thing where he cows the enemy, why didn't he give himself 30 presence and actually make a regular presence attack? And there's a very simple reason. He didn't have the points to buy 30 points, 20 points of presence, right? What's he trying to do? He's trying to spend the points on Energy Blast and Force Field, but get a presence attack that's respectable anyway. He would get angry at us as GMs if we didn't just give him bonuses, bonus D6s to his presence attack. But Scrapper, I just made this really cool speech. Can't I get like plus 4d6? No. The speech you made trying to cow these overlords doesn't work because there are 3 of them against 6 of you, which means each one of them is as powerful as 2 superheroes, and they already know this because they've fought you before. Right? So no, that's not going, your threat isn't going to work on them. But I think the key, and this is one of the reasons that I don't necessarily like doing things where you're giving the characters mechanical bonuses for mechanics they don't have, or you're saying we're going to ignore the mechanics and I'm just going to role play, and because you role played impressing them, I'm going to let you impress them and cause them to all like surrender. The thing is, the reason he's asking for that is because he doesn't want to spend the points on presence. Right? And so what is it? People act like this is an attempt to use role-playing, right? Well, it's just role-playing. No, it's not. That is not role-playing. That is power gaming, right? That is the Bad Rob trying to give his character powers he didn't pay for on his character sheet because he doesn't have the points for them, and get everybody else to agree, acknowledge, confirm, and role-play that he has these powers. And I think that's where we have to be careful about having the player characters doing stuff that there's no mechanic for. Because it's fine if, everybody can do it and it's like nobody else paid points for it, it might be okay. But a lot of times, the actual reason behind what they're asking for is not, it's not what they're saying, right? The actual reason is that they want free stuff. They want to power game and get powers they're not supposed to have, or that they didn't pay points for, or buy, or that it's not part of their character sheet or whatever, right? So when you think about the motherboard example of the character hiding under a table or in a locker or what have you, right? That's all just role played, right? The thing to ask is this player trying to get stuff that he should have had to pay for, like camouflage armor or, you know, sneaking boots or something like that? And is he trying to get away with getting those abilities without actually paying for them? Now, it sounds like in Motherboard there's, or Mothership, not Motherboard, Mothership. It sounds like in Mothership, have I been calling it Motherboard? Sorry. It sounds like in Mothership there just is no stealth mechanic. And, you know, that's fine. But I think in a lot of cases when people are arguing that they should be allowed to just role play their way to something, it really is a power gaming move, right? It's an attempt to give your character abilities that you didn't pay for. Oh, we are too high on salvage. So let's go back to the base and dump some of it, because we're overloaded. Whoops, come on. So yeah, I mean, I would always keep an eye on that. And I mean, I'm so used to champions, right? And in champions, you can literally do anything in the game mechanics. So if a player is trying to have their character be able to do something that's not in the game mechanics, my question's always going to be why, right? And the answer is almost always going to be because it's too expensive and I don't want to pay for it. We need accuracies, right? Haven't I been looking for accuracies? Yes, we need 5 more accuracies. Let's go ahead and at least get one. Do we need damages? We're going to. We're going to need damage. So let's go ahead and create that one. And we need healing too, don't we? We do. Alright, we're getting some of these now. Oh, we got 2. We need a demonic blood sample. So now we have room in our salvage, but we're still going to put it away, some away. Demonic blood sample, there we go. We grab those, come back over here. Boom. Healing. Create. Do we need endurance reduction? Are we going to? Let's see. Power crash, 9. This one doesn't, so we're going to need one more, so we'll grab one of those. Oh, we don't have the salvage for that. We need stabilized mutant genome. So let's go grab that. Boop. So that's going to be endurance reduction. We'll grab one of those. And are we going to need recharge reduction? We are. So let's grab a level 40. Oh, we need another stabilized mutant genome. Hang on. Come here. Boop. Let's grab 2 of those, just in case for now. And now we have actually room in our salvage. Where are we doing? Recharge reduction, right? Create one of those. And then resist damage. Do we need those? We do, right? These are resist. Yeah. Improvised cybernetics we need. Let's see if we got some here. Yep, we got a bunch. Come back over here, but then we're going to dump our salvage. Let's go back to here and create. Oh, we need 2 more. I thought 2 would have been enough. One, 2. Did it take them all? No, just 2. Okay. So now we don't actually need to use these right now because they're the Oh, we've got one in here already. We've got some of these already. I didn't realize that. That's fine. We don't need these right now because they're all green, but as soon as they turn white, we're going to swap them out. Do you have any others? We do. Resist, resist. So you can see we have a bunch of resist damages. I guess we probably won't need all of them. So now we're going to go ahead and dump all the white salvage we can. Oops. Let's see. And that is now full. Now we're going to go up here. That's full. Over here, we have plenty of room in the yellow. So we'll dump these. And this, of course, is freeing up tons and tons of invention space, salvage space. And then we're going to put the oranges in here. Right? So this is just basically freeing up our inventory space. We got lots of orange now. We have 14 different oranges. Well, 14 orange salvage. We have about 10 different types because we have extras of a couple. And then I think we might have room in the vault. Let's see. We have just a little bit of room. So we're going to bring 3 of those. And then if there's a 1, let's throw that in. And that's now full. So everything's full. And we now have room for about 50 more items in our salvage. So the nice thing about this is that as we... And now we have to destroy the envoy and its minions. All right. Let's switch the notoriety to +1. Okay. Hopefully that'll be low enough that if the envoy is just +1, we can take him. And we'll see what happens. This is going to be Talos Island. So back to what I was saying, right? The main issue I have with a lot of this is that often the mechanics potentially exist in the game and people are arguing to be allowed to do stuff it doesn't say they can do with their character. And this sometimes even happens with my players who are very good players. There's stuff it doesn't say, and like, I know it doesn't say this on my character sheet, but would I be allowed to do this? Right? And unfortunately, the way the trend is now in role-playing games is that, oh, a good GM would just say yes to this all the time, right? Because it's improv rule, you always say yes. But here's the problem. If you say yes to it, is that going to cheapen what somebody else has already purchased, right? Is that going to cheapen somebody else's edge or powers or feats or skills? And so let me give you a great example. None of this happened, and my best friend didn't even suggest it, but we were talking about his character can deal with the devil, and in Savage Worlds Adventure Edition version of Deadlands, the huckster, they say ante up, right? It creates, they use a Benny, and then they create like a little space in their head where they do a gambling poker hand against a Manitou, which is an evil demon, and if they beat it, they steal its powers, right? So in the current version of Deadlands, it costs a Benny to do that. In the original version of, well, in Deadlands Reloaded, it didn't cost a Benny to do that. And so I was telling him that it didn't used to cost a Benny, and when I first read it, I was like, oh, this kind of sucks, it's spending a Benny. But the reason that you're allowed to do that is because it's the huckster's version of spending a Benny to get 5 free power points. Just that with the huckster, you can get more or less power points, more or fewer power points, based on your gambling roll. So you're basically gambling that you're going to get as many or more power points or some other benefits. Because you can get some really good benefits if you get something like 5 of a kind or whatever, using a joker with the with your cards, right? And then there are edges that allow you to get more, to draw more cards and basically build a better poker hand. And so, but in the original Deadlands, well, not original Deadlands, I don't know about original. In Deadlands Reloaded, it didn't cost a penny. So now imagine my best friend says to me, well, can you make it not cost a penny in our game? Even though it says in the rules that I have to spend a penny, can you make it so that I don't spend a penny? Or maybe if I win the hand, I get the penny back. It is an ante, right? When you ante up, if you win the hand, you get it back. Now, the rules, it says you don't, right? And they've been very clear that you don't get it back unless you get a joker, right? So you could say, well, what's the difference, right? He just wants the penny back. Well, you just make the rule. Who cares? Well, the reason it matters is there are 2 other spellcasters in the group, and those guys have to pay a penny to get 5 extra spell points, right? And what you're doing when you're dealing with the devil is you're gaining back spell points. So if other spellcasters have to spend a penny, so should you. Yes, you're making a gambling roll, but you could get more than 5 points. That's why you're doing it, right? Because there's a possibility that you could get 6 or 7 points, or that you, and also it lets you cast powers you don't have, but are on your class list, essentially, right? So any huckster power can be cast even if you don't have it. Even ranks above you, you do have to, it does give you a little bit of penalty to a chance to cast it, but you have the ability to cast it, which other characters cannot do. And so this is my point here, that if you allow the player to do things it doesn't say on their character sheet, this could cheapen what other player characters can do. We actually had a character with very high presence. He spent 20 points on it and had a 30 presence, okay? Nucleon, the Bad Rob's character, had like an 11 presence, which is normal human presence. Nothing extraordinary about his intimidating ability or persuasion ability or whatever, because that's what presence is used for, that, right? For persuasion and stuff. And and intimidation. And so if you let the Bad Rob, who says, I'm just role-playing, right, use his quote-unquote role-playing to give himself like plus 4 die 6 presence, which is what 20 points of presence would be worth, then the guy who spent those 20 points to get his presence from 10 to 30 just wasted those points. And it's really not fair, right? And again, the motivation. The motivation of this... No, I wanted this, sorry. The motivation of this is to be more powerful than it says on your character sheet. It is a myth that this is being done for role-playing purposes. That's the excuse. That's the rationalization. That's the justification for it, right? It's the same thing, like I told this story, the one friend of mine, I always bring it up to tease him because he absolutely hates it, where he got kicked out of his D&D group for calling this story into question. One of the guys who played the Bard, he called him the Bard, right? That guy, he called him, was telling his story at the table. That guy was always trying to have his characters do stuff they couldn't do. When he was playing the Paladin or the Cleric, he tried to do somatic gestures with his big toe, by wiggling his foot, so that he wouldn't have to put down the sword and the shield to do the hand gestures of his spells. And the GM allowed it, right? And his justification was, I'm role-playing my character. No, you're not. You're trying to have your character be able to use 3 hands worth of stuff, even though you only have 2 hands, and the rules say you can only use 2 hands, right? Unless you're some kind of an octopus character, which he wasn't. And so he was talking about how in 2nd edition D&D or something, his character was a spellcaster, and I've told this story before. He used create food and water to create however many gallons of water it creates in the mouth. There was this big wyvern that they was facing them, and it was, probably too powerful for them to fight. But he did create food and water, and he created a bunch of water in the mouth of the wyvern, causing its head to explode. Right? And, well, create food and water doesn't work that way. First of all, why would it cause the head to explode? The wyvern has an open mouth. The water would just all come out of its mouth, right? It's not a hermetically sealed chamber. It's a mouth. The water would just come squirting out your mouth and your nose if a bunch of water was formed in there, right? So that's one thing, right? But the other thing is, it specifically says in the spell description, in that whatever edition they were playing, and this friend of mine had access to the book. They were at a role-play cafe, right, a gaming cafe. He pulled the book off the shelf because he said, this doesn't sound right. He pulled the book off the shelf while the guy was telling the story, flipped to create food and water, and read out loud to the table, you cannot cast this spell inside of another creature. It has to be cast into an inanimate container or something like that. And he's like, you literally violated the rules. And they said, you're no fun. Right? But ask yourself, what was the guy with the create food and water trying to do? He didn't have a spell that could damage the wyvern. He took create food and water so that they would have food and water on their journey. Right? It can only do the one thing. So he decided to power game, right? To not even min-max, because min-maxing isn't necessarily cheating, right? This is cheating. He's power gaming. And what he's trying to do is get abilities that he's not supposed to have in his character sheet. Who is this, the envoy? It is. Oh boy. Alright. Didn't see him there. He's trying to get abilities that are not on his character sheet. Right? And use those abilities because he wants to be Uber, and his character sheet isn't Uber. And this guy is 39. I don't know if we're going to be able to beat him. By the way, there were a lot of people apparently complaining about Baldur's Gate 3 because as good a game as it is, right, and people were enjoying it, we may as well use all our inspirations here because if he kills us, we can just get more at the hospital. They were complaining about Baldur's Gate 3 because Baldur's Gate 3 didn't let you do stuff like this. It strictly and rigidly followed the rules of Dungeons and Dragons, and there was no way for the players to make the game system allow them to do crazy stuff like this. And again, it's called, and we defeated it, guys. We defeated a +1 Envoy of Shadows elite boss. I say thumbs up, and I wasn't even ready for it. Pretty cool. Okay, so we've completed the story arc. Yeah, they're not. This isn't role playing. Right? The justification is, oh, we're role-playing. No, you're not. You're trying to make your character more powerful than the sheet says and give your characters abilities the sheet doesn't say. Not because you're role-playing or because you generated fiction first, right? That's not what fiction first means. Fiction first means you tell the story logically, and then you try to logically determine what game mechanics you need to apply to the fiction, right? This isn't that. This is saying I'm going to violate the game mechanics and all logic because I want to be powerful. More powerful than the game rules say I can be. This isn't role-playing. It's not even power gaming. It's beyond that. It's actual cheating. And it's done as a power fantasy. It's done to be to like lord it over the GM and the other players and make your character uber. This is not role-playing. Role-playing is having your character behave in a logical way that makes sense in world. And by simple logic, no matter what the rules of the spell say, if you have a bunch of water form in a cavity that has an opening like your mouth, the water's all just going to spew out of the mouth. It's not going to make your head explode. Right? There's no logical or game mechanical reason to do this. Why he wants to do it is he wants to be powerful. He wants to one-shot a wyvern. That's not role-playing. That's uber gaming, or whatever you want to call it. It's cheating. Right? And cheating in the sense of violating logic, violating roleplay, and violating mechanics, all to make yourself and your character be powerful and impress everybody at the table. But it doesn't impress anybody at the table because what you're doing shouldn't happen, right? So I guess that's my point, folks, that what you want to do is play the game as it was meant to be played, and if you want to impress people with how good you are at interpreting the rules of playing the game, not making a bunch of stuff up that doesn't make any sense just to make yourself seem powerful. Okay, so did we actually... We took the Thornblades and got valuable information, but we didn't actually complete the story arc. I thought that was the end, but we didn't get any reward merits, so it's obviously not the end. All right, so we're now going to... We've discovered the true name of the envoy. The hard part will be going in and getting it. Okay, I don't think the envoy is going to be required to be beaten in this mission, and this will be our last mission, I think, because we're already at 30 minutes. So we should be all right with a notoriety of +2. I really hate having to switch the notoriety, but there's... Like, I could beat him at level 40. I don't think I could beat him at level 41. The envoy might be present. So I think we're going to go to... Where is it? To the hospital and grab ourselves some inspirations. Yeah, I mean, it's an exploit, right? Like, imagine in City of Heroes that I found some sort of a script I could run that basically made my character take no damage from elite bosses. And then I went in there and I soloed and crushed the Envoy of Shadows and said, you guys, see, I crushed him. Would that be impressive? Probably not. Because, after all, it wouldn't take any effort to fight something that can't damage you, right? And that you can easily damage. And so, I think that we want to make sure when you're doing the fiction that you're not essentially role-playing an exploit so that you don't have to pay for it with the stuff on your character sheet. Okay? And that's what I feel like a lot of these people are doing. What we mean from the last episode by saying fiction first is that you start by postulating a story that makes sense. It makes sense for the world and the setting that you're playing in. It makes sense the way logic makes sense and the way people act in a way that makes sense for their character, and it makes sense for the game mechanics. Ooh, what happened here? Why did that go away? I have not edited the base in weeks, so that should not have happened. How did that go down? Weird. How do I exit? Exit the editor. Are we better? Yeah, that's better. That's really strange. So, fiction first means that, if you think about Ironsworn, right? I said, okay, I'm going to start with my character, and he's at this hunting lodge. And we knew from his backstory that he had fought this thing called a Grendel. And I didn't know if there was just one or more than one, but it was some sort of a monster. And it had killed a friend of his, Honshu. This guy is Wiglaf. It's sort of like a Beowulf story. And had killed a friend of his, and he had run away in fear. He was blamed for Honshu's death and was guilty about it. And he swore an iron vow that he was going to find and destroy this Grendel. Right? And that was sort of his background vow. And then there's an inciting incident, and you can make it up, but you randomly roll. I randomly generated that he was in the lodge with his friends, the hunting lodge with his two friends in the middle of winter. And oh boy, this is going to be hard. The door opens up, and this, I think it was a man and a woman come in, and their child has been taken by some bandits or something. And he makes an iron vow to go and find the bandits, right? So now we have a setup. He has a dog, Griff, And so the dog is good at helping him track and stuff like that, which is good. And we know there's a missing little kid, and somebody took, and we don't know exactly who took the kid. And so Wiglaf then says, okay, I'm going to go to town. The logical thing is he's going to go to town. He's going to go to the house where the kid was kidnapped from and see if his dog, he and his dog can pick up the trail, right? And so I used the dog asset, right, as something that could help pick up the trail. And so he got bonuses. That's logical. He's got a dog with him. The dog is capable of smelling out and tracking people. Like, it's not a bloodhound, but it can work like sort of like a bloodhound, right? Dogs are good at tracking. So it's not, that's logical. And it's actually an asset. And it says on the card that if you make a gather information move with your dog, right, that you get a +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit or something like that, right? And there is our guardian. So let's buff up. We're going to just wait a sec for build up to show up. Oh, and they're going to slow me down, so we'll hasten. And so I did the tracking, right? This is a logical thing to do. And it makes sense in world, and it makes sense with the character and with his asset. Oh, man. These guys are going to debuff me. I did not see them. I always get trapped at these stupid little diamond corridors. Time for our panic power. Look at this. They got me at 43% because of their debuffing. Because there's 2 of them. So the reason I need all this defense is just because... Oh, one of them's a lieutenant. That's part of the problem. The reason I need all this defense is just because these guys debuff you so much that you can't hit. With 2 of them debuffing me, you're at like 40% to hit, and that just means whiffing and whiffing, and then you're taking so much incoming damage. Yeah, so we're fiction first, right? The fiction first was the quest, right? The Iron Vow that this little girl was missing, right? Then I went in and I did the mechanics that made sense for the fiction. I didn't just give myself a +1 because I felt like it. I didn't just suddenly say I'm gonna have a dog. I got the dog asset, right? I paid for it at character creation. You're allowed to use it. That's the way the rules work. Okay? Then I made the move with the bonuses it says, and then I generated another fiction using the action and theme tables and everything. And I may not be remembering this exactly right because I haven't rewatched that video in a long time. But I then found out that the little girl had been taken to some bandit camp. It turned out to be a town that had this weird temple in it, and I said, okay, we're going to try to sneak in. We failed to get over the gate or whatever, and so then I tried to attack, and, well, the guards saw me, and the character got defeated. And I said, okay, logically, what happens here? Logically, I thought, well, these guys we had established, I think my character got in once and snuck around and then got out and went back for help or something. I can't remember, but we established at some point during this sneaking around that these guys had this weird temple, and even though this is the Ironlands that I have don't really worship gods anymore because supposedly the old gods are dead, right? This temple was worshiping the god Angus, who was the god of decay and destruction. And I thought, okay, since there are a bunch of fanatics with this temple and an altar, they're going to take Griff, the dog, and Wiglaf, the character, and put them in the temple as a sacrifice. So they woke up, the dog and the guy, on the temple, on the altar, chained up, right? So, okay, they're tied down with ropes. That makes sense. And the bad guys expect them to still be unconscious, but they woke up. And so what's going to happen now? Well, I thought, okay, Griff, the dog, might be able to chew through the ropes. And so I made some sort of a roll, and he was able to chew through the ropes, right? So as I'm going through this whole thing, right, fiction first, we're coming up with fiction that's logical, right? The reason they were tied to an altar is that it made in-world, in-character sense based on what we know of the world and what we know of what's happened so far in the story. That is fiction first, right? Not I'm gonna have my character cast a water spell that shouldn't damage anybody and have it kill a wyvern in one shot because I want to be Uber. That's not fiction first. That's cheating. And it's cheating for a bad reason, which is you want to basically be like the hero of the session, right? It's being really selfish. You want to have the spotlight on you. And I don't hold with that. I think that's... Look what this guy's got me. It's one guy, one debuffer, and he's a minion, and he's got me to 12%. And I just got to wait it out because I only have the one accuracy, and I don't want to spend it for one guy. So fiction first is supposed to mean that you're paying attention to the story and that the mechanic, you decide to make a gather information roll based on the fiction that you had so far, rather than making a face danger roll in Ironsworn, right? Or in Champions, you're making a presence attack rather than a perception roll or an intelligence roll or whatever, right? Based on what you're talking about and how you're playing out your character, right? Fiction first is don't look at your sheet and think of mechanics specifically, but rather thinking about the in-character interpretation of what your character can do. Fly, shoot energy beams out of your eyes. Okay, just want to make sure that wasn't our buddy. Fly, shoot energy beams out of your eyes, having armor, teleporting, and I don't know, having electrical blasts, right? Just those are verbal descriptions of what your character can do. And by taking those and describing them, right, now you do a mechanical interpretation of, well, what does that mean in game terms? Do we have to roll anything, and if so, what? Right? Same thing in Savage Worlds. There are a bunch of skills, but the skills don't cover every single thing, right? So you say, okay, what I want to do is sneak behind this guy and pickpocket him. Okay, well, that's a thievery roll. But the idea of fiction first is you don't look on your sheet and say, I have the thievery skill and I want to thieve, right? Instead, you say, what would my character do here? I did it again. I keep doing it. I always get caught at these stupid intersections. I never learn. I've been playing this game for 20 years. You'd think I would have learned by now. But I never, ever do. The idea is that when you say fiction first, right, what people are saying is don't just look at your character sheet and use that to limit your imagination, right? Use your imagination to picture yourself in the space and picture yourself doing what you're doing and think about what would I do here narratively, right? Logically, what would this character with this set of motivations, this set of goals, this background, this set of circumstances, this set of hindrances and disadvantages, what would this character with a code against killing, protective of innocence, hunted by the overlords, reputation for being a hero, 11 or less, and dependent NPC, do when the dependent NPC is being threatened, but innocent people are also being threatened? What does Spider-Man do when Green Goblin is holding Kirsten Dunst from one hand, right, Mary Jane, and a cable car full of kids in the other hand, and he drops them both. What does Spider-Man do? And you use what you know about Spider-Man. You say, okay, let me think. Okay, he's going to try to use his webbing to swing down, grab the cable, web Mary Jane, pull her to him, and then drop them onto a boat, right? Onto the boat that's sailing underneath. This from the Spider-Man movie in 2002 with Tobey Maguire. That is a narrative description of what you think your character would do with the abilities that you know he has. This is going to be absolutely horrible. We're going to need all of our inspirations to defeat these guys. Let's take the one who's partly hurt first. So the reason I put the defense buffs on is so that hopefully they don't hit me with as many of their debuffs. Whoever said these are the most annoying, and I was like, maybe not. No, when you get 3 of them like this, yeah, they're the most annoying. 20% to hit. And that's with 2 accuracy inspirations running. If I didn't have them, I would literally be floored by 3 minions. Now, I know they're +2 to me, but still. So anyway, so now you've described for the GM what you think you would like to do. And the GM says to you, okay, Spider-Man, this sounds like you're going to have to make a champion. This is champions. You're going to have to make an acrobatics roll. You're going to have to make a grab for both things. This is going to take you this many phases. Maybe he says, I'll let you do it all at once if you can roll this. Right? You're making a mechanical interpretation based on the narrative. Right? That's what fiction first means. What fiction first doesn't mean is I'm going to make a presence attack when I have no presence. That's not fiction first. That's cheating. Okay, do we have to defeat everybody or just the leader? Am I going to regret it if I just ignore these guys and look for the leader? Let's look for the leader. This is a big map. And I actually have to go in about 20 minutes. Let's see if I can just find the leader here. If not, I'll come back and do this section. But there is another section. So let's see if we can what we can do over there first. Oh, wait a minute. Is this it? Oh, that might be it. Okay, well then we'll take everybody. It's just that. I thought there was more, but I guess not. Let's see, what do we got here? Let's start at the bottom and work our way up. I don't know why. Just feel like starting at the bottom. Whoa! Okay, that was some pretty serious lag. Look at that. Okay, guys, I don't know what's going to happen in this mission now. If it keeps doing that, we may not. Possibly may not be able to finish it. We'll just have to see. Man, I should have come in here with a full tray of yellows. I thought these guys cycled out by level 40. But there are a lot more of them in here than I remember they used to have once the Airthorn showed up. I thought the Spectres cycled out. Okay, is there somebody inside the wall over here? He shouldn't be by himself. Okay, they're slowing me down, so we'll speed up. Where'd that guy come from? These guys saw me from that far up? Wow. Well, I can never too, so it's no problem. Okay, let's organize this here a little bit. If you wonder why I do that, like when I'm fighting a lieutenant, it's because I don't care. The lieutenant can't do anything to me. If it was a Spectre Demon, I wouldn't be that calm, but this thing can't really do anything to me. So. So yeah, I mean, when we talk about doing fiction first, right? When I was in college and we were doing my long-term campaign, we used our joking used to be. Let me put an email up so you can see this. We used to talk about role playing versus role playing, right? Like rolling dice. And they used to accuse the one guy of being a roll, R-O-L-L, player, because he was always trying to roll dice for everything instead of role, R-O-L-E, playing, right? And it's the same thing, right? Role playing means, yes, fiction first, but fiction first doesn't mean doing a bunch of crap that it doesn't say you can do on your character sheet. It means that before you decide what's going to be rolled and which mechanic to use, you look at the fiction that you're generating, the narrative, the role play, and you ask, what is it, what fiction, game mechanic would apply here to the fictional circumstance we have invented as we've been cooperatively storytelling. Where is this guy? Down here. Ah! Hi, guys. Wait, seriously, this is it? Where's the leader? Oh, I already beat the boss, maybe. So this is a defeat all. I see. I beat the boss a while ago, didn't I? And there's a glowy that we haven't grabbed. I remember doing this mission, and the glowy was inside of a wall. I think this is the mission where I had a call for customer service, and about 10 minutes, it was before work, and I'm like, I gotta go. And about 10 minutes later, they came in, and I heard the glowy like right here, but it wasn't here. And I said, I can't find it, and I think it's inside a wall, and he came and just completed the mission for me. So yeah, guys, fiction first is great, but it means you use the fiction to figure out what mechanics to use. It doesn't mean you don't use mechanics. And that's really an important point. Okay, so let us talk to Cadeo Kestrel. And we still have another probably episode to go with this. We've gotten a lot of XP. We got, what, 500,000 to go to get to the next level. We now only have 138,000. So we'll probably level next episode, especially if we finish the story arc, because the story arc alone is probably going to give us over 100,000 XP. It's going to give us, like, I think it gives almost a whole bead. It's going to give us a lot. So, however, we're getting 14,000. No. It won't give us. It'll probably give us about triple, about 40,000 for the story arc. But you know, we're going to get also 14,000 for the mission and 5,000 for each enemy and stuff. We'll get 100,000, 138,000 next session. No problem. By the way, we also got the here, fashion designer, the day job badge for Icon. So we get discount at the tailor. I don't know where else. I'm going to take a look here, guys. We're going to go through it slowly. Pause the video if you need to, those of you who've done this. If you can think of another day job badge that we need to get, where we can hang out, let me know. Can you get one hanging out in the PvP zones or in the sewers? I don't really want to hang out there, but I suppose we could. You could hang out by the entrance where the police drones are. But we'll stop where I always stop, which is train station. This is traditionally, long before there were day jobs, I always used to stop at a train station because there's police drones here to protect you in case something attacks. And yeah, you know where you are, and you can go straight down, wherever zone you got to go to, you just go straight down in there and pick up the train. So I hope you guys have enjoyed, and until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes with Liberty Lass.